Hey guys, I'm Layla. I work with Fortech on the side of HR as well as sales. I come to Fortech with a lot of forestry background as well as firefighting. I spent 5 years in Ontario as a Type 1 ministry firefighter. And then afterwards, I moved out to BC and aided with Type 2 as well as Type 3. During my years of fire, I spent a lot of time learning and doing a lot of fire smart around communities, as well as protecting structures. And we've been getting a lot of feedback from communities and individuals on what fire smart is, especially with the fires being so crazy here in Alberta. So today's session is just going to be informative, some quick tips as to what to do, what to look for that can help potentially slow down if there is a fire in your area, and potentially also protect your home or your structures. So the agenda for today, so like I mentioned, we're going to go over what Fire Smart is, the Fire Smart standards in rural as well as urban, before and after photos. We're going to have a few individuals speak about their experience in the evac that's been happening around here in Alberta, where you guys can find more information, as well as touch on some questions that you guys have and hopefully give you some good feedback and direction as to what you're looking for. So to begin, a lot of questions are, what is Fire Smart and what is the purpose of it? So I've attached a photo here at the bottom. It kind of shows you what your immediate zone is, which is your home. Your intermediate zone, which usually is your front yard or also your backyard, and your extended zone. So the whole purpose of fire smarting your property, and what the government has been putting out so much fire smart training out there that's free for you to do, is to help you have an understanding of fuel mitigation, as well as to educate you and to prepare you with an emergency plan, whether you're a homeowner, whether you're in the city, you're a renter, or you're part of a community and you're trying to protect a structure. So being aware of these areas and what to protect and what to let be is very important. So we're going to go into the Fire Smart standards, and today we have Keith Ebbs on the call. He's going to go into further detail as to what urban is and what rural is.
You want me to go ahead with that, Layla?
Yeah, go ahead when you're ready.
Oh, okay, thank you. I'm just going to call up that info here. So just to make it simple, there are two organizations in Alberta called AUMA, Alberta Urban Municipalities Association, and the other one is called AMDNC, which is Alberta Municipal Districts and Counties. And those two entities sort of make this definition here. Now, some villages are included as part of the MD, some are not. It doesn't particularly matter in this case. I just wanted everybody to be clear on just what I was talking about when I said urban and rural. So there's some considerations, and forgive me if I just read through these, guys. Obviously, fire protection in an urban setting, town cities especially, are going to have full-time employees, around-the-clock coverage, and fire protection can be rather rapid. I know that in the fire department here, I think they said a 3-minute departure, and that depends, of course. Urban homes are frequently stucco. Now, certainly the new building codes and the new cladding standards, and by the way, some municipalities, folks, do have Fire Smart bylaws now that you can look up. A great one is Slave Lake County. They've got superb documentation on this. And again, through AUMA, that information is free. It's free to all the municipalities. It's free to the general public. So look up some of those Fire Smart coding and legislations. And of course, now we're seeing more and more, and certainly here in Cochrane, Calgary, you have to have architectural standards applied. Now, this may go to a bylaw that says you can't have wooden shingles anymore, or you have to have this cladding on the outside, or you have to have the trees situated this far from the house. And that's becoming more and more common as councils and administrators recognize that they have to put in a legislated standard to make it straightforward, especially for developers. Urban homeowners, you know, if you're working on the farm or working out on the acreage, you're outside, you're doing stuff. Urban homeowners, and you're looking after your business, may have more time to water the lawn, do home maintenance, make sure that the paint's good and the fire pits are proper and so on. Here's one thing that really came into play in my past Fire Smart work. Power lines and infrastructure in the villages and towns, almost always above ground. The new developments, almost always underground. And that's a huge one. You know, trees falling on lines, power lines coming down high winds, et cetera, power poles burning out. And of course, in the city, we've got lots more concrete, lots more pavement. There is one standard that you can apply to both of these, and that's to reduce, I'll get into mitigations here later. So of course, rural structures tend to be older, and they certainly do not have the same response time available. They don't have the same water supplies. A lot of volunteer fire departments are semi-staffed, local resources. Species and density of trees in the acreage or at the cottage, of course, is just a row of trees or row of cottages through the trees. So densities and species of trees is generally higher in rural areas. If you don't agree with me, no sweat, just let me know. And trees, in the assessments I've done, trees are frequently not only up to the house, they're actually over the roof itself. Outbuildings are common, whether it's a horse shed or hay bales or equipment sheds and so on and so on. And the other one is that, especially in older communities, those buildings tend to be wooden. Open fire rings and burning barrels. My mom always had a burning barrel going beside the house. And of course, wood piles. Firewood piles are common, and they're common close, so you don't have to go very far to bring them in. Rural homes tend to be older, as I mentioned, and more traditional roofing and cladding. So lots of wood cladding, lots of the old tar-based shingles on the roof, etc. You may have livestock. You may have horses, goats, and the associated feed supplies such as haystacks and hash barns and so on. And again, the power lines are open and higher density on rural lands. And however, you may have ponds, water troughs available, dugouts, so on. So let me hit one more here. Okay, tips, any questions or comments on that, folks? Leila?
No, I think that's pretty good. We can jump into some tips for your place.
Sorry, say again?
We can hop into going over the tips that we have here listed for people's homes. If you'd like to go ahead, you can. If not, I can take it.
Okay, no, go ahead. Oh, yeah, go ahead, Leila.
Okay, perfect. So some tips and tricks that I've noticed over my time in the industry is that sometimes that you don't really think of is, I know here at my place, I have a lot of welcome mats, you know, the old school style. They burn quickly, especially when there's embers and high winds. If you get an ember that lands on that, you're looking at creating a fire in that area. As well, if you have an overhang entrance, such as a porch covering, setting up a sprinkler in that general zone, because that will be a good capture spot for the wind to blow some embers as well. Patio furniture, hanging plants. You want to make sure that you're cleaning out your gutters, and not just when you're getting an evac notice or when it's fire season. Something that to keep in mind and to prepare yourself in the spring and the fall, keeping that clear. Obviously cutting your grass helps as well. I know if you have, we got some acreage out here, so sometimes it kind of, you miss a few days and then it catches up when it's really dry and you get those embers floating through the wind. That can be a really significant start, which leads to grass fire and as well burning into other areas. Choosing your plants wisely. I see a lot of people who like to grow cedar next to their home to act as a fence, to have that blockage from your neighbors. I understand where you're coming from, but having cedar so close to your house is a high risk. Cedar is likely to catch, especially when it's so close to the house. So just paying attention to what plants you're choosing and where you're planting it is key. Pruning your trees in the spring or in the fall. There's all kinds of information out there on the internet where you can learn how to properly prune a tree, when to prune it, and get that sorted out, so that way you're not one, killing your tree, which most of us who have trees on an acreage, it's there for a purpose, but also making sure that you're pruning it prior to and not leaving that debris, and you have enough time to get that debris away and out of your property, whether that's burning it in the wintertime or getting a chipper to come in and mulch it up and remove it from your property. You want to also, when we talk about ladder fields, I mean, it says it in the name, a ladder, something that climbs up, right? So by pruning those trees, if you have a grass fire or a slow surface fire coming in, they're going to want to, and they're going to burn anything that's a fine fuel. So little sticks, pine needles, excess grass, leaves. So by pruning your trees, you're taking that ladder fuel. So when the fire is coming in and it's burning at a higher intensity, depending if it's a class 1, 2, and so on, your tree is pruned up. So if it's a running fire, usually grass fires are running, which is very common to see out in rural areas. So that fire is just kind of catching anything it can on its way, and it's picking up and it's building as it's going. If your tree is pruned, it doesn't have anything to necessarily climb up to. Not saying that it 100% won't do so, but you're alleviating that problem by taking care of those lower end branches. As Keith mentioned, I know a lot of people like to keep their wood piles close to the house, especially if you are burning a wood stove. I know we do that back home. Definitely something to keep at a good distance away. If you have sprinklers that you can set up, setting that onto the wood pile, or getting a wrap to put over it, so that way it doesn't add that extra fuel. Debris, any other debris that you have underneath your deck, extra wood, lumber. I know we got lots of lumber here. Moving that into the house. Any sort of propane tanks, whether it's the bigger propane tanks, a barbecue propane, and your little small compactable camping propane tanks, all things that can catch, keeping that away. Spare tires, keeping that away. Also, one thing to keep in mind for those who do have a chimney and that heat their house with wood, if you are putting a sprinkler or you're having crews come and do structural protection, putting a bucket on it to alleviate some of the embers going in through the chimney, as well as the water going inside to your home. That's something that a lot of us forget about. It just helps minimize any extra disaster going on. And then also keeping off fluids such as oil, gas, diesel, paint thinner, aerosols, all inside your garage or in your house. So you want to really make a good clean area around your house and kind of be pick and choose as to what you're okay with burning, such as patio deck versus your home burning. I know I'm a big gardener, so one thing that I stopped doing is using bark mulch and pine needles. I usually do a compost and set that out around my garden beds. So I stopped doing that after I seen what can happen if an ember lands in there if it's really dry. Keith also mentioned a lot about power lines. So you always want to make sure if you're, one thing to keep in mind that there are arborists out there who are certified, qualified. Give them a shout, get them to come in and clear the lines for you. That's very important. That's some things that we kind of neglect as homeowners or don't really think about. So getting that checked, maybe not every year, but if you've gotten it done previously, getting it checked to make sure that that is clear as well, because that can cause extra issues for you. So there is also an individual on the call, Nicole. I invite you to share some of your information and what you've gone through as you were dealing with an evac this year.
Hey, everybody. Yeah, anyways, I just thought I would quickly share. Our house is on a little acreage near Grand Prairie, and we were just evacuated for this fire that started 12 days ago or so. Yeah, anyways, it was just something that caught us off guard because it's nothing that we've ever experienced before in our area. And just some of the takeaways that I took from it were things like we were storing 12 large truck tires stacked right up against our shop. So another one of those long lasting fuel sources that if they were to catch on fire would definitely make sure that the whole shop burnt down. Same with a bunch of pallets that we had them stacked up against the shop. We had quite a few 5-gallon pails of etching fluid and asphalt repair. So those we actually took from inside the shop and we put them like out in the middle of the yard, in the middle of the grass, so that say the shop did burn down, that it wouldn't, make sure that our whole property burnt down. We made sure to remove, any propane tanks and ammunition that was in the house, because that just makes everything more dangerous for the firefighters if they had to be around that. And yeah, just some of the landscaping things, we bought our property because of the amount of trees that were on it, but a time like this definitely makes you rethink how close you want to be to these trees. So we've been, ever since we moved in, we've been cutting out dead trees, but now we have to consider, moving live trees further away from our house, just for safety. And yeah, these are all things that are very valuable, and thankfully we came out unscathed from this fire, but we're definitely going to be smarter about where we store things in the future.
Awesome, thanks, Nicole. This page, you'll see there's a really great course that you can take. I took it the other day actually as a refresher. Now, just because it's a FireSmart BC made for BC doesn't mean that wherever you are, you can't go and take this course. FireSmart standards may vary from area to area, but this course is really great. It's free also. I would highly suggest taking it or at least looking into it. We have it posted here. If anyone does request or would like more information, my email will be at the end of the presentation where I can send some links off to you. There's also over here the Alberta wildfire website where you can track where the fires are, see what's happening in the area if you're from Alberta. There's FireSmart Alberta as well. And then there's also FireSmart Canada. So another site where you can get some really great information. there's some courses on there that you can look into. And then Keith actually shared a homeowner guide page. It's a PDF form. So anyone who would like that, we can share that with you. And they also have, I believe it's attached here in the next slide. Kind of blurry, sorry about that, guys, but this is a score sheet that you can print out from the website and go do a walk around and see, okay, this is too close, or where this is, and you can get a score at the end. I know that there are some areas where you can call your local fire department, or you can go onto the government website, and they usually have someone's name listed with a email and phone number for a Fire Smart assessor. They can come by and do a walk through your property, educate you on what should be removed, what shouldn't be removed, as well as go through the scorecard with you. So just things to keep in mind for future. There's lots of information out there, and I recommend you looking into it for sure. So these are also some before and after photos, just to show you an idea as to the fuel that has been removed and what it looks like afterwards. These are all done by Keith. So thank you, Keith, for sharing this with us. But as you can see here, this is kind of what it looked like. You can see there's power lines, there's a power pole, there's some RVs in the back. So just clearing out those little shrubs, it also is a Fire Smart, but it also looks a lot better. Here's another one here for you guys. So you got some down wood. If you got a grass fire coming into these areas, there's lots of fine fuels for it to catch on to, as well as some bigger fuels for it to go and start doing what we went through. So the ladder fuel and crawling up and creating a bigger burst of flame. So another before and after from Keith. And then here, I don't know, Keith, if you want to chime in and explain a little bit about your process here and the equipment you guys used. Hey, Keith, are you there?
Sorry. Hello.
Hi.
Oh, sorry, Leila.
That's okay.
It had muted here when I didn't do anything for 20 seconds or something.
That's all
as a little
good.
bit of backgrounder, I had formed a Fire Smart company in 2009 with two friends, all forestry professionals. And I've been doing Fire Smart since then. Not only just the operational stuff out in the forest, but actually doing the analysis. I did a complete assessment on a wildfire hazard assessment for the city of Calgary. I actually did all the plot work with one of the fire department members here in Cochrane. I've recently just finished working with both the Stoney Nakoda fire crew and the Sutina fire crew here to train them, their firefighters, on Fire Smart standards and how to do it and how to get it efficiently. So I've got a very extensive background here in Fire Smart, just FYI. So in this case here, this was for Brazeau County. This was the, back to the photos here, this was the hamlet of Lodgepole. And in this case, you can see aspen here, which is a Fire Smart friendly species. It doesn't burn very well. The trouble was that it was right beside a power line and right over their brand new ice skating rink. So as part of the grant money we got from the government, we simply brought in a small feller buncher and a processor. All this timber went to Weyerhaeuser at the time, anything that was merchantable. And we cleared an area. And Leila had referred earlier to the different zones around buildings. Well, that would apply to really any building, any municipal structure. This was right in the village. And here's a note as well, folks, that within municipalities or acreage complexes or hamlets, even villages and towns, there may still be land in between those homes, which is actually municipally owned. That will actually qualify for a government grant. Some of the grant money for Fire Smart is dedicated only to municipalities and reserves in the province, and actually some federal land now as well. But private land does not. And you can understand why there'd be 100,000 people wanting Fire Smart work done at cost. So some of these areas right in between you and your neighbor may actually be eligible for government funding. Anyway, we came in, we took down these trees, we brought in a mulcher, cleaned up all the brush. We didn't burn anything. The Fire Smart programs that I run and historically have run, we avoid even lunch fires. There's not going to be much burn. Now, we have burned in the past. Recently here at Stoney, Dakota, we had to burn a bunch of piles, and over at Sutina as well. But we were extremely cautious and had approvals from the fire departments. So now we've got a nice clean structure. We know that even in a fire, if the roots burn off, we're not going to have anything collapse down onto the roof of the infrastructure for the village. You're going to have to jump ahead, Leila. There we are. Do you want to comment on this, or may I?
Go ahead.
Yeah, so this, and you can see the telephone pole in the left-hand corner of the photo. So I stood in exactly the same spot. One of the target species at a very high concern is the amount of black spruce. And Leila had mentioned earlier about the ladder effect. If the fire burns across the grass in the ditch, now it's got a ladder to get up into the trees and up into the wind. So what we did, and go to the right photo, here's the after. It's a dramatic difference. You can see the one big pine tree left there and a bunch of pine in the back you can't even see here. Actually, this was north of Lodgepole, but it was still part of Weyerhaeuser's FMA. So we could not cut commercial timber. That was one of the rules. And we researched that obviously beforehand. I've gone back to this. I thought there would be more blowdown. This was done in 2009. I thought there would be more blowdown, and there wasn't. A couple pine trees snapped off, but really didn't add fuel to the situation. But you can see from fuel loading that's going to run about 150 to 200 tons per hectare, and something that you could never put a fire crew into. If you go to the right photo, any fire crew in the province will be able to not only attack this on the ground, but it makes the air tankers much more efficient, that it can get that product not just on top of the trees, but right down to the ground and have blankets of fire retardant. There has been maintenance done actually in Lodgepole. So they've already gone back 3 years ago. So give or take 10 years after the initial prescriptions were completed, and they did a maintenance roll, a small one, but it really made a difference around the village. That's it,
Awesome.
Leila.
Awesome. Thanks, Keith. So again, thanks everyone for joining in. I left my email here, so anybody who would like to take the time to email me some feedback, or if you're looking at getting some links sent over to you, that's my email. Don't hesitate. I'll get back to you as soon as I can.